must evolve if it is not to become obsolete. As we are all aware, copyright belongs to the intellectual property class, which I refer to as IP. It's a generic term that covers copyright, patent, trademark, service mark, industrial design, trade secret, among others. IP can be contrasted with other properties like real properties and other intangible properties. However, despite the fact that there is a consensus of opinions that intellectual properties are also properties in law, it is disheartening that intellectual property is not being accorded its right of place in our legal system. Whereas the society and the law frown heavily against theft of physical objects, the theft of intellectual property does not attract the same level of condemnation as you have heard the Honorable Chief Judge just said now. He just wants his name to be heard, to be known, not knowing that his property is being stolen away. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is no longer open to debate that the prosperity of a nation is directly connected to the level of protection it accords creativity. Empirical studies have shown that countries with strong intellectual property regime are ahead of the pack because they are able to attract creators, inventors, and thinkers. The world is being dominated today not by traders in physical properties, but by information technologists, creators, inventors who develops applications, software, and allied products. The Forbes list of the world billionaires is dominated by people like Bill Gates of Microsoft, Larry Ellison of Oracle, Michael Bloomberg of Bloomberg LP, Larry Page of Google, Jeff Bezos of Amazon.com, and of course, the 28-year-old Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook. What they all have in common is that their wealth is founded upon their intellectual properties. Our challenge as a developing economy is therefore to ensure that our legal regime for protection of intellectual property is comparable and in tandem with the best international standards. This is one of the ways of stimulating our economy by encouraging creativity. Nigerian musicians, Nollywood practitioners, and world-class authors have shown that we are not lacking in talent and creativity. A country that produced a Nobel Prize winner for literature in person of Wole Soyinka, and which produced Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, which have been published in no less than 50 different languages, will not be said to be barren of creative ideas. I therefore agree with the commentators who have observed that one of the principal factors inhibiting Nigeria from capitalizing on its tremendous creative potential is the inadequacy of its copyright system as the principal policy tool designed to secure fair returns to the authors and creators to facilitate market transactions. As I mentioned earlier, a law cannot afford to be static. With the greatest respect, I am of the humble opinion that the jurisdiction of the Federal High Court is becoming bloated with confinement of additional jurisdiction seemingly on a daily basis. It is my view that proper observance of the principle of federalism will limit considerably the jurisdiction of the Federal High Court as presently conferred by Section 251 of the 1999 Constitution. Historically, the Federal High Court was conceived to provide speedy dispensation of justice in respect of federal government revenue and commercial cases in admiralty and intellectual property matters and licensing. This is because time is usually of the essence in such cases. However, it appears that the jurisdiction of the Federal and State High Courts appear to have become blurred in the extent that Federal High Court handles virtually all types of cases. With my experience, I can say land cases, some cases, chieftaincy cases. Why should the Federal Court be bothered about that? Then we have to first of all deal with the issue of jurisdiction up to the apex court before the judicial is settled, before the main substance is not tried. The implication of this is that the Federal Court is unable to speedily resolve matters brought before it in this area of cases that it should focus. Consequently, there is usually a clamor for the establishment of a new and specialized court to address specific matters. We may end up having a call for establishment of a particular court or tribunal for entertaining intellectual property cases. That should not be. It is suggested, respectfully, that the jurisdiction of Federal High Court should revert to pre-Decree 104 statute. That is, in essence, the jurisdiction of the court as provided by Section 230 of the 1979 Constitution be restored. This will assist the court to deal with matters that are only of revenue and commercial in nature, which includes copyright matters. Timelessly. Related to this is the interlocutory appeal arising from such matters, and I respectfully submit and advocate that interlocutory appeal, should terminate. And the point of this approach is that the Commission will be more effective in its enforcement drive and will therefore be able to ensure that copyright infringement and violation becomes a thing of past in our country. In conclusion, respected ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, Milo, the journey has just started. The Copyright Commission, under the leadership of the present DG, the energetic and firm executive, my learned colleague, it deserves our commendation and support in this noble assignment. A stakeholder in the Nigerian project, as a stakeholder in the Nigerian project, we cannot afford to be spectators in our own country. The first copyright legislation, as you have heard today, the Copyright Act of 1911, by way of statute of general application, was gifted to us by our colonial master, the Great Britain. The current one we have was more or less decreed into existence by military fiat 13 years ago. Now, 13 years into our civilian democracy, the time has now become right for us to midify a truly corporate copyright legislation that will meet the desire and aspiration of our people as a dominant force on the global stage. At this stage, I wish the Copyright Commission all the best in this in this forum that they have set for itself, and not to be too late to send wherever the bill that is required to the National Assembly for passage, and of course the asset of His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I wish you a productive deliberation, and I thank you for your rapt attention. Thank you very much.
the protector of our land, we greet you. My children, we all know why we are here today, this beautiful afternoon. We are here all together to say no to piracy in our community. Those who always rape where they do not sow. It is an abomination in our society. And whoever that is involved in this kind of will be punished. My children, they shall be punished. It shall be well with all of you.
contextualize Nigeria's copyright reform process within the context of the fact that many other countries in the world are undertaking copyright reform efforts right now. Nigeria is the first country in Africa to undertake comprehensive copyright reform. As such, Nigeria will assume a leading role in Africa in copyright reform efforts and a leading role globally in copyright reform as well. One of the things that I think has been mentioned by a number of speakers is that copyright is very important, both from the perspective of cultural heritage, as well as providing a platform by which Nigeria's creative and cultural industries can truly become global in their reach. They are global in their reach right now, but they're not necessarily getting remuneration globally with that global reach, if you look at Nollywood, for example. So our goals are to have the copyright reform process provide a basis for global development of Nigeria's creative industries, and that will enrich Nigeria's creators, enrich Nigeria's creative industries, and as well as provide a global platform for continued development of Nigeria's cultural heritage. And I think, Ruth, you're going to talk more specifically about. Okay. Thank you.
You from my dad, and it was just an honor to finally get to meet you. My remarks are going to be really, really brief, just because of the time. I want to say all protocols observed, and I want to thank the DG of the Nigerian Copyright Commission for reaching out to Fumi and I to be a part of the expert working group to help in this reform process. Fumi is being very modest. For those of you who don't know, she is one of the leading scholars of Nollywood in the world. She is both a professor of law and a professor of anthropology. She is a former foreign diplomat of the United States government, and she has degrees in law, economics, and anthropology. So I am really honored to many years ago in Boston, and we've been good friends ever since. We didn't know we were going to end up here on the same day. I also want to really thank Mr. Afam Ezekude. When he reached out to us to be a part of this process, I think often people forget that there are many Nigerians in the diaspora who are eager and willing and hungry to see the nation rise to its richest and fullest potential. So it is an honor for us to have been asked by him. His leadership has been amazing. He's been innovative. He's been creative. He has just said, I don't care who gets the credit, we just need to get this job done. And it's amazing that he came back from England to take this position, and I think that the country is enriched and the better for it, and I want to say thank you, Afam, for letting us be part of this. A little over 20 years ago, a young girl from the University of Jos decided to do her honors thesis on the transfer of technology to Nigeria. And she began with a trip to Lagos to look for the Nigerian Patent Office and the Nigerian Copyright Office, only to discover that there were no such offices in the country. That young girl went about writing her dissertation anyways, and wrote that dissertation and mentioned about the importance of intellectual property protection in Nigeria. 20 years later, actually maybe 10 years later, that young girl was visiting at the World Intellectual Property Organization in Geneva, and she happened to be introduced to Mr. Moses Ego. I'm not even sure if he remembers me. I was doing my research at WIPO, and the WIPO Director General said, well, you know, Nigeria is about to set up a copyright office. And I was so excited and got to meet with him. Gosh, that was 20 years ago. Got to meet with him and his vision and his passion. And what is now the Nigerian Copyright Commission is really as a result of his indefatigable work to make sure that this commission starts. So thank you. Mr. With two major commitments. The first thing he said is, I want a transparent process. I want a process that involves all sectors of the Nigerian economy. This is not just the NCC's law, it is the people's law. So we have developed a roadmap that involves consultations with every aspect of the Nigerian economy, We are targeting, in particular, not just Nollywood, but the publishing industry, the music industry. We're targeting the IT services sector, as well as the educational environment. We have a 12-month process. You will be pleased to know that we are actually in month 3 of our process. The DG, in his infinite wisdom, said, not only do I want this to be transparent, I want it to be effective. I don't want a long delay, I want action every month. And so we had to come up with a plan. For those of you who have not had the privilege of working with Mr. Afamazekide, don't apply. He's a taskmaster. And we are up sometimes 15 hours a day working on one thing or the other about this reform process. Gathering data, gathering empirical evidence, talking with stakeholders. Many of you are here today, and we will continue that process. Once with this public launch, we will finalize in the next 2-3 months consultative processes. We will then begin the process of drafting the key legislation that's expected to be the outcome of this process. The process of reform is not merely intended to inform the Nigerian public about the dangers of piracy. It is also intended to encourage innovation and to encourage even more creativity. Our purpose and our plan is not only to have a new legal and administrative framework, but indeed a functional and effective framework within which those whose efforts to produce new goods and new services and those whose ideas fuel this economy will continue to be rewarded, and that those goods will be available without fear of penalty or without being foreclosed from access because of the work of pirates. To this end, we envisage that the process will produce new partnerships between the NCC and other relevant government agencies, including the National University Commission, the National Library, the Ministry of Education, and onward. Our vision, as given by the Director General, is ambitious. It is also unprecedented. But we believe firmly, after all of the evidence has been reviewed, that we owe this reform process to the future generation of Nigerians. It is our debt, and it is our opportunity to secure a stronger foundation for tomorrow. Nigeria has no excuse to not have the most modern and effective and functional intellectual property system, beginning with its copyright laws. Nigeria is the most literate country on the continent. Nigeria produces the most PhDs on the continent. Nigeria has produced, as someone else mentioned, the first Nobel laureate in literature, Professor Wole Soyinka. Nigeria is represented in the top 10 institutions in the world, whether you go to Oxford, Harvard, Stanford, Cambridge, wherever you go, the top 10 institutions in the world will have not only a significant body of Nigerian students, but Nigerian faculty members as well. Nigeria is the largest producer of cultural goods on the continent. Nigeria is one of the few countries on the African continent in which innovators have taken out patents not only in Africa but also in Europe and in the United States. Nigeria, its greatest resource, it's not its oil and gas. Its greatest resource, it's not its fertile fields and agriculture. Nigeria's greatest resource are not minerals. Nigeria's greatest lessons are not in the past, but they lie in the future. Its greatest challenges, aspirations, and hopes are not yet over despite the current challenges. Nigeria's greatest resource, its greatest aspirations are in its people. And whether it's music, whether it's innovation, whether it's literature, whether it's education, this is the resource that must be protected, it must be stewarded, it must be encouraged, and it must be rewarded. And so on behalf of the expert working group, of which Professor Ariwa and I are members, together with the Director General, we want to say this is a process we look forward to, because as I said,